Jangling under old neons. She don't know he's barely hanging on. Last chance betting the whole damn farm on cracking his hand around a rigging.
So my San Angelo buddy, we still like, I don't even know if we, we met for the first time at the NFR last year.
Yeah, we were.
It was at the Paul Cawthon deal.
At the Paul Cawthon, yeah.
And I tried to tell people the story about how when we met, there was a guy you were with who's, I guess, part of the Vaquero.
Oh, was it Smallwood?
I don't know.
It might have been. It might have been John.
That sounds familiar.
Because I was with John Smallwood, Scott Slusher, and David Bond. But I don't. It might have been, or unless it was another vaquero that was there that knew them. Maybe I don't
know. But the guy handed me a. It's the first time and only time I've ever gotten it. But he handed me a business card, just a white business card with just his name on it.
That might have been John Smallwood.
And I was just like,
that might have been Smallwood.
Tried to look him up, and it's like the guy didn't exist. Yeah. And then all he said was like, "I'm a part of the Vaqueros." It was very mysterious.
Yeah.
And you were standing around him or something. Yeah. It added to the mystique for sure.
That was, yeah, maybe. I don't know if that was a good show actually though too, because I'd never seen him live.
You hadn't?
Mm-mm. And so that was actually pretty cool. But
I'd played a private event with him one time, and that was the first time I saw him. And
how was that?
I was a fan ever since.
Yeah. He's something else.
Dude, I mean, and his band is always just unreal.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really something else. So I guess he's out here again, isn't he? He's playing somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know where he's playing though. We were gonna try to get him on the pod.
Man, that'd be good.
Yeah, he'd be an interesting one.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But
yeah, he got JB Mooney and Kai out there for one of the songs.
Yeah, he was up there on stage. They were up there on stage. That's right. I remember that. So
yeah, JB was like, they just stood there. You know, they're just like, I think he was just smoking a cigarette. He's just like.
When's he not smoking a cigarette?
True. True.
That's all part of it.
True. Yeah, so that was the first time I met you, and then we hadn't been able to like connect since then.
No, but it's always, it's funny. You think about like, we all live in Texas, but we don't see each other till we get here to Las Vegas with a million other people. So even though it seems like our world's a small world, but at the same time, we're all scattered. So, man, we don't live that far apart.
No, you're in San Angelo.
San Angelo,
yeah.
So and you're in Decatur, so they're right around. Is that where? Yeah,
yep.
It's not that far.
Nah,
it seems like I'm in Weatherford every other day.
You are? What for?
Spending money at Teskey's or going up to either showing there at Will Rogers or going to Cody Porterfield's or somewhere up. It's always the horse world seems to evolve around Weatherford now, so that seems to be.
For sure.
Where we always are. So,
are you originally from San Angelo?
I'm from San Antonio, or right outside San Antonio. I was born and raised.
Where at?
A little town called Adkins.
Okay.
Which would be Lavernia, Stockdale. It's Bexar County, but it's on the outskirts of San Antonio. So it's kind of used to be small. It seems like San Antonio's slowly taking over all those small towns. But
ranching family,
horse family. Well, okay. Dad was a rough stock rider. And mom and dad met because they were rodeoing. Mom rode breakaway and was a barrel racer, and dad rode bulls and bareback horses. And they actually met at an arena where we used to get on horses and bulls practicing, and that's where they had actually met. So, and then mom got out of rodeoing and went to training horses. And like a lot of, I guess, rodeo guys, is once they get married, they got to quit. They got to quit rodeoing and get a real job. And so dad which is funny is, we grew up with a barn full of horses and mom trained horses and dad hated horses.
Really?
Yeah, he was like a lot of those old rough stock riders that it seems like they just hated horses.
He just wanted to spur them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he wanted them to buck or not do anything at all. And so,
interesting.
But he was the guy that, I always tell everybody, even though he didn't like the horse business, he did anything he could to help mom be successful in the horse business. So he built fence, built stalls, fixed things, did whatever mom needed in order to keep those horses, to keep her in business. So that was always, which it's funny growing up, or I say growing up, but more or less like once I got out into the world, everybody always assumed dad was the horse trainer. So they were like, well, what'd your dad do in the horse business? And I'd always be like, well, it wasn't dad, it was mom that was in the horse business. And so I had growing up, it was a different perspective. Like I just assumed that it was always the mothers or the sisters. It was always the women that were the horse trainers. And so it was, I always had this different perspective of that, which is almost the opposite of what most people assume in the horse business, is that it's the man that's doing all the.
What age did you start to even figure that out?
Man, that's hard because it seems like it's probably been in the last 10 years that.
Really?
Well, I think because it's, the more, and I think it has a lot to do with social media. As the more people reached out, or the more conversations outside of your social circles you had, people would just assume that it was your dad that was in the horse business. And so, but I always respected the women in the horse business, because mom was always, if we were just having this conversation today about, when mom was showing, she always wanted to show against the men. Even though there was women that were just as good as the men in the cutting horse world, or even in the pleasure horse world, she wanted to be right up there with all those old timers, those old horsemen that were showing horses, because she figured that was the best of the competition, and if she could hang with those guys, she could hang with anybody. And so I always got to, and my mother was super competitive. I mean, she was vicious, when it came to the horse world, and where I wasn't. I didn't get the competitive side, but I
At
appreciate.
all?
No, I mean, I did. I think at one point in time, but it wasn't like I was obsessed with winning things. I just wanted to be good at what I did, and to make a living. And
So who do you think you got that from?
I don't know.
Was your dad a little bit more?
My dad? No, because dad was, which it's hard because growing up, dad. Looking back now, like if I was to look at what dad did in the competitive side of things, is being a rough stock rider, he looked at me and said, you're no good at riding bucking horses. Your brother is. And so he more or less wanted my brother to be really good at riding bulls or riding bareback horses, and he wanted me to more or less do what mom was doing. So dad was more practical in that sense, but I wouldn't say he was. It's not like he had my brother out there doing push-ups and getting on, the dummy or the spur board and always doing things, but he built my brother a spur board, for riding bareback horses. So it wasn't that he was competitive, but he wanted to do whatever he could to make us successful in whatever. So it was the same thing he did with mom, he did with us.
So he's a pretty selfless person, it sounds like.
Dad was extremely selfless.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys that whatever it took to help us. And it's, and like with my sister, she didn't really do much with horses except when we were little kids, but she liked cheerleading. She played volleyball. And so dad did whatever he could to help her be successful growing up as a cheerleader or doing sports. So he was, and where my mother was so obsessed with being successful that it was like, let dad handle the kids, and when it comes to that, and I'm going to keep training my horses. So
Yeah, it's like a little bit backwards from the way.
100%. But when it came to like the traditional things, like the cooking, the cleaning, they shared in those things. So there might have been a night where mom might have gone off to go work a horse at somebody else's place, so dad would cook dinner. But if mom was home, she would cook dinner, and mom she did all the things that you would expect, the man to do, like working on the fences or, they shared in those things, but mom didn't wait for somebody to do those things. She just did them. And so there was this, just seeing the dynamic between the two of them. I think there was so much value in that, and that, I think that's what helped me with not just relationships with, it helped me with anybody. It wasn't like, it's like I was telling somebody the other day, I was walking through the hall here and there was something laying on the floor, like right outside the door here. And it was trash, but I walked by it and I was like, nobody's picking that up.
Oh yeah.
And I went and I picked it up and realized it was just trash, but everybody kept walking past it. And the way we grew up, if it was like baling twine or baling wire or something on the ground, we picked it up. And that came from both mom and dad.
My big one is shopping carts. I find myself like putting away everyone's shopping carts.
And that's a good one because you'll see somebody like they'll put their groceries in the car and then they think they're doing right by just turning the shopping cart another direction like they've done their job.
Crazy.
And I'll go over there and grab it and I do my best to not make eye contact with them because there's things that I would love to say to those people. It's like it's the simplest thing that you could have done raising them that would translate into putting that shopping cart where it belongs.
It's unreal, man. And then you got somebody making minimum wage that's going to come out there and do it.
Yeah.
Have you seen the cart narc guy?
Mm-mm.
He's on social media. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I can only imagine.
And he does like, he'll have like these like flags with like a suction cup on them or whatever, and he'll have like these magnet stickers. And so when he'll follow people around out there when they don't put their shopping cart up, he'll come out there and be like, "Oh, cart narc," and he has like a little siren that he does, and he'll like stick this flag on their windshield, and he'll like act like he's writing them a ticket, and they get so mad at him.
The funny thing about that is you can look at somebody and you know exactly what they're going to do with that shopping cart.
Yeah.
You're like, they're just going to leave that thing, and it's like the time it takes for them. And you'll watch some of those people, and they'll see that shopping cart like start to roll, like slowly towards either the middle of the drive or rolling right towards somebody's car. And the time it takes for them to just go put it up, they'll sit there and watch that shopping cart and not do anything with it. And it's like, all you have to do is go put that thing over there in the rack.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's been times I've been incredibly disrespectful, but it does seem like people lack a general sense of
yeah. But it's one of those things too, like if you're going into the store and you see somebody load their groceries and they're done with their cart, just grabbing that cart from them and be like, "I'll go put it up.
I'll do it for you."
It's like make your entire day and make their entire day.
Yeah, they'll think about that the rest of their life.
Yeah, and it's a simple task, but
we've got a guy in Decatur that Micah, do you remember the guy that used to do the chains at the football games in Decatur in high school? So this guy, he was missing an arm, I think, right? Yeah. I don't even know if he was missing a leg or something. Like I thought he had a fake leg too. I don't remember. But he worked at Walmart, and he was a shopping cart guy for freaking ever. And then he was the chain gang in our football games for as long as I can remember too. But he would always wear like roller blades, and he would do it. And he had one arm, so he'd push all those carts with one arm. And it's like dude, he hustled working just on rollerblades with one arm. Fascinating guy. And
I mean,
you'd see people just like leave carts and stuff. And it's like, the guy's got one arm and you don't even
yeah,
know
exactly. I don't know. It's that lack of compassion or empathy or just pure laziness.
Yeah.
At some point. But I think some of those things go hand in hand anyway. So
yeah. So your upbringing, that was not allowed.
Oh God, no.
Oh God, no.
No, it was even as kids, it was even on Saturday mornings, Dad would give us a little leeway watching cartoons or whatever it was, but then it was like outside, doing whatever it was. Dad was one of those guys. He could have easily dug post holes with a tractor and an auger, but he just assumed do it with a pair of post hole diggers, just because that was like the character building way of doing things. But it only came natural to him, and so he made sure that at least that we had done it and knew how to do it once we went out into the world, and that we were capable of doing it the hard way versus the easy way, even if we had the option. It was part of the mindset that he instilled in us. And Mom was the same way, but she was that. I always tell the story that, Mother was a multitasker big time, but she was also very much she could delegate tasks and chores, but she was a dictator. And and I always say that she found ways, she loved for us to get into trouble because she had so many things we could do as punishment that helped her. And the biggest one was picking up rocks,
out of the arena,
out of the pastures, whatever it was. She just assumed let us get into trouble. One, it was a character building thing, but it was also a way she was like, all right, pick up rocks, wash water buckets, do whatever it was. But at the same time, she would say, now but that was one of the, where Dad did his best to just teach us a lesson by saying, don't do this, it's wrong. Mom would tell us after the fact because it was check something off her list.
Yeah.
Of
She's
things.
kind of hoping you might screw up
Exactly.
a little bit.
Exactly. I was actually reading something I wrote a couple years ago, about it. She didn't care if we. I mean, as long as it wasn't something, we weren't burning down the house or something. She let us get into trouble because it was just one more way to get us to do something, clean stalls or whatever it was that we had to do.
So did she train horses freaking her whole life?
Yeah, she was.
When did she actually?
So they didn't. She didn't grow up with horses. I mean, well, I say that it seems like everybody back in the 50s and 60s, somebody had a horse that you could go ride, and they grew up in San Antonio, but even back then, somebody had a horse. I mean, even if it was in the middle of the city, somebody had a horse. And I think Mom was 16 when she decided that's what she wanted to do was train horses, and she worked. She went to school, and then when she was old enough, I think in her senior year in high school, she would go to school half a day, and then she rode her bike down to one of the barns, and she would work riding with different people, and she started learning how to give riding lessons, and then she learned from different horsemen just around the area, and she knew exactly that's what she wanted to do, and spend her entire life training horses.
Yeah.
So
when did she quit training?
I tell this story. She went through different disciplines and different phases of the horse life, but when there was, and this would have been, let's see, probably in 2014, 2015, she somewhat retired from the horse business, but she still had horses, but she was more or less just doing it for her own thing. She went into doing kind of like ranch pleasure stuff with a horse that she had, just because she wanted to still show horses, be competitive, but not have the pressure of being successful. Even though she was super competitive, and she would always complain about the judges, when she wouldn't win a class or something like that. But I always tell people that so Mom ended up having uterine cancer, never told anybody. She didn't want people to feel sorry for her. She didn't want any of that attention.
How long did she not tell anybody?
About a year. And it finally got to the point, and this would have been in early summer of 2016. She finally got to the point she couldn't get on a horse anymore. And she was still riding. She had competed that.
She didn't even tell your dad?
No. And which I'll tell you something even more unbelievable in a minute, but it would have been, my nephew graduated in May, and we could tell something wasn't right, but she was still riding, but not doing like she had done. And I tell people she went into the hospital in late June, and she had been on a horse 2 weeks before that, and she died in the middle of July. So she rode horses up until about a month before, and she just couldn't get on a horse anymore. So, she rode up until she just couldn't do it, but that was, I always tell people, I said, if somebody had told her a year before that, you can't ride a horse anymore, she probably would have died a year sooner, because that's what kept her going. And Dad was the same way. They were both hard workers. And that's, the doctors always say that's what keeps those people alive. When they're that tough, they work their entire lives, their bodies are stronger than what's killing them, until they just can't do it anymore. And Dad was the same way. Dad had lung cancer and never told anybody. And
how long after your mom passed did he get that?
2 weeks. So we always say that Dad died of a broken heart, when what it was is he had finally lost that will, because his best friend, his wife of 40-something years, had died.
He got diagnosed with lung cancer.
We don't know when
he died 2 weeks after?
2 weeks after Mom did.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. So neither one of them told each other?
Mm-mm. No, not until they finally had to. And what I always say is that Mom died without knowing Dad was sick, which was good.
Wow.
But it was one of those things that, like,
that just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, it people always think it is sad when you lose your parents, especially that close together. but it was the fact that they didn't give up, and we always, we knew Dad wouldn't take it well, but it was one of those things we didn't know when Dad was diagnosed. It was one of the Dad was a smoker, so he smoked since he was 12 years old, and so we didn't know when he went into the hospital. The doctors were like, he has like this much lung capacity, and and we're like, well, he has smoked since he
And
was
that's
12
not a
years.
lot, right?
No, that much. Yeah. So you
I mean,
think
to me, that seems like,
that was one. So if one lung was completely non-functional, and the other one is, basically the bottom part of that lung was functional. And I remember the doctors were like, all this cloudiness in here, basically his lungs aren't working. And they were like, and see that big white spot right there? That's cancer.
wow.
And we had no idea, and so it was one of those, we feel like if Mom had still been alive, Dad would have kept going with cancer until he just couldn't function anymore. But we feel like it was, basically, it was, I remember my sister and I talking about it, and I lived 3 hours away. My sister lived just south of San Antonio. So every day she'd go by and check on Dad. And he was still like doing stuff, like still working on the barn, still work, because that's what kept him going. And then finally it was like, he just, he didn't give up, but he just couldn't do it
Oh,
anymore.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you how powerful love is.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's not like they had no one has the perfect marriage, but they'd been together 40 something years, and raised us, and and so it just shows that was it. I always say it's like he just died of a broken heart.
Yeah.
Cancer, saying he died of cancer is just too generic and sucks to, and
Yeah, there's almost something comforting about dying of a
Mhm.
broken heart.
Yeah.
I guess in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I'd rather look, and not everybody has that frame of mind, but I'd rather look at it that way. So
Yeah, he just wanted to be with his. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, that's pretty gnarly.
yeah,
How long ago was that?
2016.
Yeah,
It
not all that
was-
long ago.
Yeah, Mom, it was July 6th, and Dad was the 25th of July.
Yeah.
So, and they died at roughly the same hour, at 4 a.m.
Really?
Yeah, that was kind of the neat thing about, and they both died at home, and in the same bed that they lived in, that they slept in, so that was, and that's the way we wanted, Mom wanted to die at home, and by that time, my sister and I had made the decision that Dad's going to die at home too, and to know that they both died at roughly that same time, that was actually, yes, it's sad, but at the same time, it's like there's something romantic and magical about that. So,
Yeah.
my sister and I just look at it that way.
Yeah,
So,
you got to, man.
yeah, I mean, it's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess did you go to where did you go to high school?
I went to East Central High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you rodeo through high school?
Mm-mm. I hated horses because they were work and they were punishment. And it wasn't until I was a junior in high school, and I would go to school half a day, and I worked at a grocery store. We had a small grocery store near our house, and I would actually ride the school bus, and it would drop me off at the grocery store. And then once I could buy a pickup, I bought an old truck, and I'd get out of school at 10:30 in the morning, and I'd go work at the grocery store. And on the days I didn't work, my mother was finally like, "Hey, why don't you help me with the horses?" And then all of a sudden she was like, "Wow, he can actually ride a horse." We always would get on the horses and go ride and do
Yeah.
stuff. But she like realized, she's like, he can help me, and so she was still riding 2-year-olds then too. So she slowly started having me help her with those 2-year-olds. And then it just kind of evolved from there. And then slowly it was like I quit working at the grocery store and started helping her most of the day, through my junior and senior year in high school.
So was she mainly training barrel horses or rope horses?
No, she was training at
Or
that.
she was just starting colts?
Some like actually back then it would have been thoroughbred horses for the track.
Oh.
And then she had gotten into polo horses.
Oh.
And so she started buying these horses off the track. that were already broke, obviously, but they were horses that just weren't going to make it on the track, and she started trading horses, and so she could buy horses, and if they weren't going to make for like a polo pony, she would figure out we'd just get them broke and then sell them, but she started doing more and more of that, and she at the time she was still every once in a while she'd get like a reject pleasure horse of all things that were the worst horses in the world, and you get these Western pleasure people who say this horse is running off with me, and which running off meant they just weren't listening to these.
I'm surprised they were sound enough to even run off with them.
Most of them weren't,
Yeah.
but she would find ways to fix these horses to where they could go back to showing them, and then she just completely got away from the quarter horses altogether.
Oh, and so she was okay, but she was still doing the polo and the race horse
Yeah,
stuff?
we were so then she just shifted completely to polo horses, and which was to me one of the best things that could ever happen, because it was just such a legitimate horse training world that she could do, because she wasn't roping, and she hadn't roped breakaway, and she damn sure wasn't doing barrel horses. I think she quit barrel horses when we were born. She got completely out of the rodeo world, and
for what? Do you know why?
Because she had triplets, and so, but she wanted to get more into training.
Yeah. Well, what did your dad do for work?
He was a carpenter.
Okay.
Well, I say that he became a carpenter, but when they were married and we were born, he was actually washing cars. He worked at a gas station as washing cars, and then he eventually got into working for a company that built cabinets, but they also built houses, and so he was more or less a woodworker, but still went to work every day.
So when she was having kids, though, she had triplets. It's like,
yeah,
she wasn't riding no horses. But I
she
guess
was. Yeah, it was one of those things where they eventually. So we were born 2 months premature,
and I guess that was like the perfect thing for her to be able to get back on one. You get
three
done in 9 months.
She had a crew, and so and it's kind of funny because they called us the triplet pit crew when we were little, but so they finally had to tell her to quit riding when she got too big to get on a horse. But it wasn't long after she had us, she was right back at the barn getting on horses. And she would put it, if she was working 2-year-olds in the round pen, she'd have all 3 of us in the round pen. And she had a snubbing post in the round pen. And so she'd just park us right there around that snubbing post. And there she had some old tires over that snubbing post, so we'd sit on those tires.
Just in the center of the round? Yeah.
Yeah, and then when it came time for her to do something with those, like to do more than just, kind of work those horses around, she'd put us outside the round pen. But it got to where when we were like 3 years old, she would put us on those 2-year-olds. And so what she would do is she'd have those 2-year-olds in the round pen, and she'd just put us on, put us off, and she'd just take us.
Like a saddle pad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so then when she'd have them saddled, she'd put us on there, and then she had these old rope side pulls and with 8-foot reins on them, and it get to where, so she'd start walking those horses around with us up there, and she'd have her finger in our belt loop, and so if anything happened, she'd just yank us off, but if those horses were good, she'd slowly like feed out the reins, and those horses would get a little farther away from her, and she'd just walk them around. And if they looked like they were good enough, and she was going to get on them and ride them, she'd just put us outside the round pen. And she had a place where she'd tie those horses on the fence of the round pen, and there were these big sandy spots where those horses would paw, and so we'd just sit there in the sand, and she'd ride those horses, and so it didn't slow her down at all. And when she was still showing horses, and I mean, this would have been in the early 80s, she'd take us to those horse shows, and, everybody knew us, we were the triplets, and, it was like a mother hen with her chicks, wherever she'd be going with those horses, we'd be right behind her, the whole time, until we got big enough to go off and, play around at those
so what was
shows.
the move into more show horses than like her doing the polo stuff?
I think she was it all happened by accident. She getting into the polo horses, she bought this thoroughbred mare off the track, and she was a really nice mare. They called her Merit, and I don't remember what that mare's registered name was. But she was a thoroughbred mare and a nice mare. And we grew up just a couple miles down the road from, at the time, he was one of the best polo players and breeders of polo horses in the world, Tommy Wayman. And his dad was Billy Wayman, who rode cutting horses but also trained polo horses. And my mom had she wouldn't hesitate to ask for help. And she didn't know really what to do with this thoroughbred horse. And she called Billy and told him what she had. And he said, I'll come look at the horse. And he was like, this is a nice horse, and he ended up helping her sell that horse as a polo prospect. And they became instant best friends, and Billy would have been like my grandfather's age. And he recognized the potential in my mother, not as a polo player, but as a horseman. And my mother never wanted to be called a horsewoman. She wanted to be called a horseman. And Billy liked that, she wasn't intimidated by that aspect of men versus women in the horse world. And so they immediately started like partnering on horses. And and she loved the aspect of the polo pony, a horse that could do everything that a cutting horse could do, race horse could do, any horse athlete. The polo pony was the elite equine athlete, because they have to stop and turn, they have to run, they have to do all of these things, and that appealed to her. She liked that. And so it was like no looking back. Once she had the bug for those horses, that's all she wanted to do, the rest of her life in the horse business. And which worked out great for me.
But he had some cutters though.
He had cutters, but they weren't cutting anymore.
Okay.
So it was strictly polo horses at their barn, and they had hundreds of horses, and it was just it's such an appealing sport with horses, and fascinating because it's global. It really is.
Oh yeah.
Anywhere you go in the world, there's polo. Where there's not necessarily a cutting horse or a rein cow horse or a pleasure horse, there's always polo.
Yeah, I don't know shit about the polo world really. I had a real good friend growing up when I was little that played like big time polo. I want to say he played professionally, but he would go every summer down to like Argentina.
Yeah.
And he'd play down there. They were like real wealthy family. But I don't know anything about it, but I watched that documentary on, there was like one on Netflix, wasn't there? But the guy was like cloning them or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And cloning's a big, we were talking about that today about cloning, but yeah, the one on Netflix.
What's that guy's name? He's like the biggest freaking of all time.
Adolfo Cambiaso.
Yeah.
And he's actually, they just won the Argentine Open today. Him and his son, they played on the same team with two other brothers, all young guys. They're all phenomenal horsemen, polo players. But they sort of revolutionized cloning and horses. It's incredible what they're doing now in the horse business.
Yeah, and I can't. Wasn't there like some sort of like legal thing that happened with him and the business partner or something?
Probably.
I can't remember what it was. Oh, there was like a doc that he was partners with, and something went sour. I thought something happened. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. Huh. Probably.
I don't know. I probably got that wrong.
Yeah. But no, it's that world. It's a fascinating, and I guess it's lucky because
it's like the Formula One, but for horses.
Yes, 100% the Formula One. In every aspect of it, it's Formula One. It's the most elite and elitist thing you could do in the horse business. We think cutters spend a lot of money on horses.
No.
But it is one of those
we look
things.
like a bunch of hicks out here compared to that.
And I can remember growing up, and this would have been once I was out of high school and riding polo horses, and Billy used to say, You know, you can spend as much showing one cutter as you can playing 6 polo ponies. You know, and it's sort of shifted over the years. It's obviously the money is, you know, there's no end to what they spend on these things, but you know,
Like what's a good polo pony cost?
oh God.
Roughly. Just like
I mean,
let's
they're
get in
anywhere.
the game,
It
you know?
seems to me like on average, if a guy says, "Hey, I need six horses to put in my string with these other 6 or 12 or 18 or barnful I already have," you know, they might be spending the bare minimum 35,000, and I think that's like a utility horse versus the best, you know, and they're spending $250,000, whatever.
Yeah, and
you
then you
know,
have to have a whole string of them.
and they've got you know, they'll go to the field and they'll have 9 of them. You know, where they used to have 6 of them, but now they'll take 9 to 12 horses because they're playing them half chuckers. They're not, you know, it'd be like, to me, it'd be like if you were at a cutting horse show, you got 2.5 minutes to cut you know, to show your horse. If you had the chance to switch horses in that 2.5 minutes, you would, but in the polo world, they're doing so much more. So they're starting to extend the life of these horses by, you know, if you're playing a 7-minute chucker and there's 6 chuckers in a game, they'll play a horse 3-4 minutes and then switch and get on another one. And because the horses are so important and they're becoming so valuable that and maybe they'll come back on that horse later on once that horse is rested. But they're treating those horses with such respect as their value that.
So how much did you play?
I played a lot back in the late 90s, and mainly it was young horses. You know, I was, you know, most of the places I worked for were ranches that had polo horses, because ranches are owned by wealthy people and they play polo, and so they all went hand in hand. And the ranching and the polo world, in a lot of places, there was a crossover. So I would ride those young horses, and then I would start playing polo on them as young horses, and then eventually hand them off to the guys that would take them further. You know, like the 2-year-old guys in the cutting horse world. But
Okay.
we were breaking them as 2-year-olds, playing them, starting them in polo as 3-year-olds, and then slowly moving them on. And then I played professionally. I wasn't competitive, so I was always very protective of my horses or whoever's horses I was playing. So if I was getting paid to play, I would choose to protect my horse instead of putting them in a play that would maybe win the game or make another play that would win that game. And so I was just very cautious when I played.
So is there guys that have a reputation for doing the opposite?
Yeah, there is. I mean, guys that'll do anything with, put their horses in a sketchy situation in order to make a play that might win them the game, or at least win them, you know, to do anything to get that ball to make another play.
So in the polo community, is that something that's frowned upon or encouraged, generally speaking?
Depends on where you're playing. You know, there's so many levels, because in polo you have levels. So you have your low goal, your medium goal, and your high goal polo. And your low goal is very amateur. Not that there's, I mean, I didn't mind the amateur polo because it was slow. It was a way I could get my horses trained, and you would play with people on
Still
a lower.
super dangerous.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, between a 3.5-inch ball made of hard plastic, mallets, you know, that could hit you, horses, people, and a lot of times amateurs that might not understand the rules. So the levels of danger go up with the levels of play, but at the same time, the level of play also made your players professionals, and they ran that fine line, just like in F1. There was that line of, do you wreck your car or do you put it on the edge of wrecking it?
Sure.
Just to win that race.
Yeah.
And whereas if it was logo, it's go-karts, you know, like if you wreck that go-kart, you're not going to get hurt for the most part. But if you wreck that in the high goal polo, if you cause a wreck, it's liable to kill you or your horse, you know. But, and so there is that. I mean, there's a level of danger in anything we do with our horses, but I think in the polo world, it's even more than racing, you know, in the horse racing, you know. But I mean, any of them you can get hurt in. So,
but you played predominantly just to train the horses.
And that's what I preferred. I liked it because I liked training the horses. I liked seeing those horses progress, and then knowing that, 5 years down the road, a horse that I had started in polo is winning awards as the best playing pony somewhere, and being successful for somebody that's playing polo either as a hobby or as a profession. And there's a lot of satisfaction in that.
No doubt.
Yeah. So
were you training other disciplines along with that?
I wasn't trained in other disciplines, but I never hesitated to at least learn other disciplines, because it doesn't hurt, and it wasn't necessary at the time. In the polo world, you're not around cow horse people, you're not around ropers, you're not around cutters, you're around dressage riders, you're around the jumping horse, you're around the equitation riders, you're around exactly what you think anybody that you might not know anything about polo, but you understand that everybody's probably wearing,
Lululemon.
Yeah, pretty much. Wearing tall boots, riding English saddles or flat saddles, and so I was, but none of that can hurt you if you have the confidence and the self-awareness or even the security in yourself to learn those other disciplines. It can't hurt you. It only helps you in your horsemanship. And I liked it, honestly. I didn't do lots of it, but riding jumpers was a lot of fun because it's like everything. I like to go fast on a horse, but if somebody said, "Hey, will you go jump that 6-foot jump over there?" I wouldn't hesitate to do it. Sailing through the air on a horse and hoping you land correctly on the other side. There's a lot of fun in that. And approaching a jump and realizing that horse has to clear it or you're going to crash. That's a lot of fun.
It freaks me out.
Yeah.
Did you have a bad wreck doing that?
Never had a wreck doing that, and never really, honestly, knock on wood, I never had a lot of wrecks playing polo or learning other disciplines. And I think it's because I was just, if I ever had a bad feeling, I could find a way to navigate that bad feeling and keep it from coming to life.
So even like, is that an intuition even with the horse?
Yeah.
Did you have that from a really, really early age?
I think so. If I had a bad feeling about a horse, there was usually a reason. And it was almost one of those things that, obviously if we think something's going to happen with a horse, we end up making it happen with a horse. But I do think that I gave every horse a chance and gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I think about, like, I bought a horse one time, real pretty gray horse, and the minute I got on her, I was like, this is not going to go well. And I was like, but I'm going to get her away from the barn. I'm going to get her moving, and hopefully it works out for the best. And, 200 yards away from the barn, she bucked me off and I broke my leg. And somehow I knew that was going to happen. But,
do you ever think sometimes because you're thinking about it, it like puts it in their head? It's like almost
yes,
they feel that energy because
but I don't. Yes, but which comes first?
I know that's what I'm saying.
The egg or the chicken. But that horse, and it's funny because I remember I was laying out there on the ground, and she ran off back to the barn, and I knew my leg was broken, and it hurt like hell, and I was trying to like get my boot off before my leg swelled up so much that I'd have to cut my boot off. And I was sitting there like trying to push my boot off, and I could just feel, you feel it, and
so it was like the tibia down there.
It was actually right here, back here on this bone, and it was a spiral.
Oh, how weird. Did you get like hung up or something?
No, I landed on the heel. So when she bucked me off, I went straight up in the air and I landed right on my boot heels, straight up. And it caused that spiral break right up here.
Like on your feet?
Yeah, just like that.
You landed on your feet?
Landed standing up. But I was so high up in the air.
You went that high?
I had enough time to realize, I was like, oh shit, I'm really high in the air.
Oh my gosh.
I had enough time to think that before I thought, well, if I land on my feet, I'll be okay. And it was as soon as I landed on my feet, I fell backwards and was like, "It's broken."
Did it jack up your other leg too?
Mm-mm. No, just that.
How
just
weird.
and it
Dude,
was,
that thing had to it's like
it hurt.
launched you.
She did, and that was the thing. It's like,
Dude, that's just straight out of
yeah,
sorry, I'm laughing about it, but
well,
it
no,
just seems
it's funny.
like such a ridiculous.
And I remember I had a flip phone, and it was in my pocket. And as I was laying there, I called the guy that sold me the horse, and I said, "This mare just bucked me off," and he knew it.
No.
And he
Wait,
said,
what do you mean he knew it? Like,
well, he knew she was a bronc.
oh,
And it was from a sales company. It was at a horse. I won't mention names.
yeah.
But he said, "Bring her back." Like without hesitation, he said, "Bring her back."
Oh,
So
well,
he
that
knew.
was nice at least.
Well, so I took her
yeah.
back, and he wasn't there.
Of course not.
There was a note stuck to the door. He said, "Put her in this pen. There's a check in the envelope." And the funny thing about it is the way that all worked out is I'd bought another horse that was crippled.
Same people?
Same guy. And he said, "Bring her back." And when I took her back, he said, "I got this gray horse you might like."
Good grief.
So it was, and that's just horse trading stories.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it was one of those that
I've always wondered what the end game is, though, because if they're just going to give it.
Well, they end up going on a truck and
Yeah.
heading south.
No, I know, but like, it's like if you know it's going to buck,
yeah,
and then they're just going to bring it back. Like,
Yeah.
why even go through the freaking?
I guess they think that, well, maybe
I'll
they'll
get
through
lucky
it.
and
Or they think, well, he'll take the horse home, maybe turn it out before and then once time passes,
I can
it's
blame
no
it
longer
on
his.
yeah.
Yeah. But it was, every horse I ever bought, I couldn't wait to get on them. If I bought them without getting on them, and so but I couldn't wait to get on those horses, and so that was and I think he probably was like, maybe he'll wait a week or so before he gets on this thing, and then it won't be my problem anymore. But
I don't know what happened.
yeah,
What do you
exactly.
feed? What are you feeding it?
Yeah. What'd you do? You can feed her too much? Put her in a stall?
Yeah.
Or, one of those things. But I do. You get those weird premonitions, and I think anybody that has a lifetime with horses, they respect those premonitions, and they either give the horse the benefit of the doubt, or they don't get on that horse.
Yeah, so listen to this one. When I first started shoeing, so I learned to shoe from my brother-in-law, and then his dad was a big-time shoer. And there was this horse that my brother-in-law would do. Its name was Wings, and Western Pleasure horse. And this thing was like, if you walked by its stall, like it'd come after you.
Yeah, they're so bitter.
Try to
so
bite
sour.
you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you'd have to like, you couldn't even go near it. And when you'd shoe it, we would have to like just drug the hell out of it, like torb and dorm and have to lay it down and do the hind feet. And I mean, you'd give it so much drugs and have to lay it down. And it was the one time I would see, and my brother-in-law is just like a badass and like never saw him get scared of anything really. And he would just sit there and shake when he'd have to do it. And it was a badass horse too.
Yeah.
And so we had to shoe it all the way around. Like there was just no way around it. So, and it would like, there was one day I saw it like get him down and just like absolutely pummeled him in a corner. And so he'd have to lay it down and do those hind feet. So anyways, you fast forward, like, I guess it would have been probably 5 years or 6 years or something like that. And the lady who had originally owned that horse, I started shoeing for her in a little place called Nakona up north of Decatur.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like a rite of passage kind of place. Like I'd go out there and trim her brood mares and do her studs and stuff like that. And she's a pretty eccentric character. And she was like, I would be like doing a stud in the barn. Like she would run her brood mares through the barn into stalls. And I was like under a stud one time, and she was like running brood mares down. Like she was nuts. So anyways, I'm sitting there doing this mare one day, and I get the front foot done. I go around doing this hind foot, and she was still wanting me to shoe it for whatever reason. And I'm doing this hind foot, and like no problem at all. She had a little foal with her, and we were just sitting there getting it done. Didn't move a muscle. And the lady comes walking by me, and she goes, "Oh, she's being good." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, she seems like she's pretty chill. I'm holding a hind foot." And she goes, "Well, you know who that is, right?" And I go, "Nope, I don't know which one this is." She goes, "Well, that's Wings, the one you used to do over there." And I was sitting there holding that foot, and I go, "What?" And like right when I said it, you felt her.
Yeah.
She started tugging on me, and I was like, "Oh my!" Tugged on me, and I just backed away. And I stood up and turned around, and I was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Why did you not tell me that?" I go, "Do you realize what we used to have to do to get this thing done?" And And I'm not kidding, dude. I went over there to grab that hind foot again and just pow.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't do the hind feet. Right from that point.
And that it's one of those where they always say ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
You know, and it there's so many stories out there like that. And when you were saying that, it made me think of a story that a guy told me about. They went to go gather or something, and a friend of his was running late, and I guess he had left him. This would have been a long time ago. It's not like we had cell phones, and he had left him a message somehow saying, just grab the gray horse, meet me out, here, this is where we'll be gathering. And he grabbed a gray horse that had never been ridden, threw a saddle on it, got on it, and rode it all the way out there. And they were like, what are you doing? And he's like, he said to get the gray horse. And they're like, that horse has never been ridden. And he was like, oh, no wonder I'm having to pull him around everywhere I go. But the horse had, but it was one of those, if he had known the horse had never been ridden, it could have been a wreck.
Yeah, man.
And I think there's so much of that in the horse business that if we don't, they always say, oh, it only bucks on Tuesdays, those jokes like that. But I think there's that energy.
I 100% believe in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm not even like a hocus pocusy type person,
so,
but there is no doubt about it.
No, and I think that the horse business is full of that. So
the energy thing, or just
energy.
like, oh yeah,
and the hocus pocus, but
yeah. I mean, how many times have you you've probably gotten horses that people have just said all sorts of stuff about, and then you're like, I don't.
But it's funny. I sold a horse a few years ago. We called him Ranch Water, and he was a full brother to a horse that we had that was an amazing horse, gentle as all get out, and this was a full brother. And when I bought the horse, they didn't tell me. He had front shoes on, but he didn't have hind shoes on. And I remember I got him home, and I was going to reset him in the front and shoe him in the back. And man, there was no shoeing this horse behind. And I was like, I'm going to get him. We drugged him. We did everything we could. And I remember I went to tack a nail, and he was fine until you start driving those nails.
Which is the worst time.
Yeah. And as soon as I hit that one nail, he kicked that shoeing hammer, and it stuck it right in my forehead here. The claw of that shoeing hammer.
Did it stick in there?
It stuck in there.
Oh,
and I thought, we'll get him, and I had a mare that was similar to that, and she shoved a nail right through she shoved a nail all the way into my leg one time, but he was bad. And I sold him to a guy that still has him, loves the horse. And to this day, he's like, we still can't put hind shoes on him, and he said, we've tried everything. We've tried all these different horseshoers. And I made a joke, and this has been about maybe 6 weeks ago. I said, what if you just tell a shoer that he's not, just don't say anything about him being bad to shoe behind.
I know, right?
And he's like, man, I never thought of that, but I haven't heard from him since. I don't know if
yeah.
But I do think it's that power, that power of perception, it's that energy.
It's a dicey thing. It pissed me off because it's like, you realize you could have freaking got me
now
killed.
all of it. Yeah, exactly.
At the same time,
true. It goes both ways.
At the same time, it's like, it's a solid case to be made about. Yeah. The second they feel you, like, they're going, wait, what? Why are you being weird? And you're going, why are you being weird?
No, yeah, exactly.
Then everybody's getting weird.
Yeah, exactly.
When did you learn to shoe?
When I had to shoe my own horse.
When was it really just you didn't have anybody like necessarily show you? Or?
No, I mean, we grew up. Growing up, we had a couple horseshoers that shot all mom's horses, but there was always, when I first went to work in the horse business, if a horse lost a shoe, it wasn't call the horseshoer, come have him put the shoe back on. It was, well, go put that shoe on that horse. And,
gosh, I bet those horseshoers loved y'all.
No, but it was, you had watched enough of your horseshoer shoeing horses that you had a pretty good idea. It's the same with floating teeth. It was like, go float that horse's teeth. And it was like, I think I've watched it.
That's crazy.
I've seen it done. So you learn, and obviously you got to have a feel anyway. You have to have some sort of common sense about shoeing horses, a good idea of how it's done. You're not just going to go start driving nails into a horse's foot.
But there's like just doing it enough, like the mechanics of it. Like it's really awkward.
Well,
and weird.
Yeah. And if you've spent your life, with horses, you kind of have a good idea
Yeah.
how, and I mean, obviously you're not going to go shoeing for the public,
Yeah.
because they're not going, you're not doing corrective shoeing. You're not doing, and they're not perfect by any means, but I started, I just had to start shoeing my own horses at some point. And then at some point, the only way I could afford to shoe a horse was to do it myself. And so I got better at it, hated doing it.
Oof.
It was one of those things that I could watch somebody shoe my horses, and they could do 6 horses, and by 3:00 in the afternoon, they're out of there. By 3:00 in the afternoon, I still got 3 more horses to shoe, and I'm hating it. And there's satisfaction in it. I mean, there is when you set a horse's foot down and you look at that shoe, those nails are perfect. You're like, yeah, that's awesome. And then you think, I got 6 more of these things to do. This, but it's it's not something I would ever want to do full time.
You'd have to be an idiot.
Yeah, but it is there is nobility.
The only way you can be dumber than being a horseshoer is trying to be a musician.
They pay really well. It's the lifestyle.
Yeah, they both pay tremendous.
So you might as well do both of them.
Actually, I mean, shoeing does pay well.
It does.
The music thing.
You earn every penny.
That you do, for sure. You definitely earn.
But if, you think about, and I'd say, man, imagine if you could shoe a horse and sing a song at the same time.
I really feel like if somebody did that, might be onto something.
Yeah, they would be. I might know a guy.
I still have, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And he's like gay though or something, isn't he?
Something like that.
Yeah, I thought so.
Something like that.
He's a little squirrely.
Weird.
Yeah.
But aren't we all?
He's North Texas weird.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah, he's not from West Texas.
I am 30 minutes from Denton.
Yeah, well.
It does get a little weird over there.
I won't.
I went to the square in Denton the other day and there was a furry.
Really?
Yeah, like the people on the leash and
stuff.
No. Yeah, they were like
I don't know what those are. Wait, what?
Yeah.
What is that? Yeah.
It was a trick to see,
Yeah, I put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah, you sure did.
But in Denton? Really?
Yeah, right.
What was it doing?
Denton's weird. Well, somebody was leading it around. What was it doing?
Well, what? Exactly. I don't know.
Well, isn't that weird? Like that used to sound rude, and then nowadays calling somebody is like supposed to be more appropriate or something.
A compliment,
right? Because now you're not assuming what they are.
No, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't.
I do think you and I are the guys that are going to figure it out, though.
We could.
All these problems.
Does that mean we'll save humanity?
100%.
That'd be good.
100%.
Yeah.
Dude, you are like you are the quintessential guy that I think of whenever I'm in an airport and somebody's like, I'm wearing my hat and they're like, you a real cowboy? And I'm like, no. You're the reason I say no is because of people like you.
Nah, it's one of those. I mean, I did my own podcast about, that are you a cowboy? And there's so many levels to how you answer that or what they mean by that, and it's one of those. I don't know. It's hard to even approach the subject anymore because we did which is kind of, we were just talking about this last night. Is we did this photo shoot a couple weeks ago for a hot rod magazine, and it was this 32 Ford gasser, and it's there, it's rusted. I mean, I say rusted out. The thing is untouched. It's pure hot rod, and we were talking about like, even back in the day when they were building these hot rods, those guys were cowboys in a sense of what they did was no different than what cowboys did. It was the same lifestyle, but different. Obviously, you had your hot rodders and you had your guys on horses, but in a sense, it sounded much better to call those guys cowboys than it was to call cowboys hot rodders, and it just works that way. But they all shared the same train of thought.
Yeah, the ethos is the same.
Yeah, exactly. And I say that about a lot of different lifestyles, but we've seen such a blending crossover of all of these things. And I mean, I find that to be just so appealing to like, because growing up, even though we grew up with mom in the horse business, my brother and I were those guys that, and I've told these stories, when she would go to a horse show, we'd always smuggle our skateboards into the nose of the trailer. And as soon as we'd get to a horse show and mom would go off to go work a horse, we'd get our skateboards and we'd go find somewhere to go skate, and talking to a guy last night, he was like, well, what music did you listen to growing up? And I said, well, Dad would play records, and it would be the Beach Boys, Eddie Rabbitt, Roger Miller, Crystal
dude,
Gale.
that's really funny to say the Beach Boys and Eddie Rabbitt.
Yeah, but he did, and he had
Yeah.
8-track tapes in his truck that were the same as the records, and you would have like the Flying Burrito Brothers in there, and then Mom would be like George Strait, Huey Lewis, Phil Collins, and
Man, Phil Collins, that's a
she was obsessed.
People
with,
do not talk about him enough.
No, and he's come up a lot lately because everybody always talks about, growing up, we never wanted to admit that we did have some Phil Collins in there somewhere, that we listened to.
I never hear anybody talk about him, and then in
Really?
the last 4 days, like I've heard like 5 people talk about him. I put out a cover of one of his songs
He's great.
like a while back, and like
Yeah.
nobody knew it. Nobody knew what was going on.
No one.
Or at least in my world, nobody really knew it.
But that's how we, But for me, I loved punk rock. Growing up, it was, and I remember listening. It was like Social Distortion, Rancid, 7 Seconds. There was.
Oh, you were.
Yeah, I mean, you get into 7 Seconds, you're going deep, But like even when I was young, it was like the Dead Boys, and it's like, you're listening to the Dead Boys. That's
So
like,
so was some of the '90s punk stuff? Was that like? Did you get into some of that stuff, or not as much?
in the '90s, it would have been like
I love The Offspring.
So the Offspring, which the other day, actually on Spotify, I put in 90s punk, and
Yeah.
it was a lot of that stuff. And I was
Okay.
like, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, there's no Blink 182 in there. And then it wasn't like 10 minutes later, I'm like, nah, we're getting real close to getting into the 2000s. But it
Oh,
was
right,
like
right.
old Blink 182.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah,
like
most of the 2000 stuff is not my thing. Yeah.
no, but like in the 90s, it was still 7 Seconds. It was some of that pop punk stuff, but it was like Black Flag, DRI, and then in the next breath, here I am, I've got George Strait or Chris Ledoux. You had all that, and then it was a lot of the Robert Earl Keen, Gary P. Nunn, and then there would be like, a Social D cassette tape, all of that. So it was just a matter of what I was like wanting to listen to at that moment, and it's still that way,
Yeah, you just need to be the spokesperson for my music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's such a good, I mean, it really is like a good crossover. It makes me think like, and I was telling Michelle that today, I said, he's on stage in Vans in a Blink 182 t-shirt and his cowboy hat,
Yeah.
Like how much better can you get, but it's hard for a lot of people to even,
Oh, dude.
but
Cannot handle
no.
it.
And a lot of the old punkers were like, they would talk about listening to like the Kinks or the Dead Boys, and then it would be like Bakersfield country. There was that connection between, if you look like Chet Atkins, they're listening to Chet Atkins, but then they're listening to the old rockabilly because there wasn't a
Right.
big difference. And that was always fascinating to me with like Bob Wills, is everybody says he was like the original punker,
Yeah.
but it wasn't punk. I mean, but he represented what that was. It wasn't a front to the traditional. So.
Did you ever see a band called the Dirty River Boys?
Mm-mm.
They had an upright bass. They kind of had a punk thing to them too,
Hmm.
but it was like a folk punk
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the
And I
upright
think
bass
Corb Lund.
Yeah.
At one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's definitely
he
got
was
that stuff
he
mixed
had
in
a
there.
he had a rock or a hardcore punk band or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. Yeah, he even said that last night. But and I think that there's so much to speak for that type of. There's an interesting dynamic with that type.
Yeah,
of
and it's just nobody's quite done it in like the cowboy format.
Right.
That's why I like playing that opening thing, like where that wasn't necessarily like a punk song, but it definitely has like a
right.
rock and roll grungy thing to it. But yeah, writing that style of music, but with like cowboy aesthetics and storytelling, and
Yeah.
that-
I mean, punk rock ballads.
yeah, man.
I think that there's something to be said for that.
Well, that's cool. You're making me feel not so crazy.
No, not even. No, I think we need more of it.
Where do you think you have that independent streak to you, that you just seem confident in what you're doing, regardless of what everybody else is doing? And I find that to be rare. Like, where did you get that?
I think I always had it, it's one of those things that it takes life and experience to be comfortable with it, and then there you end up finding acceptance. And I think in this day and age with social media is there's two different paths to take. Either social media destroys you, or social media gives you the confidence to embrace those things because you find those other people that think like you do. And I don't know where it came from. I think it was just the idea of I don't know. It's a delicate discussion because you don't want to insult people that don't have that same wavelength. Like maybe there's a simplicity in the way some people think, and then you're beyond simplicity with one day you're listening to this or reading this, and the next day you've done a 180. But there's this idea that you're never completely satisfied with what you're learning. And so if we stay in one genre, you end up getting stale, and some people are okay with that. And I think as a kid, my imagination, it was just always, I was always daydreaming anyway. But where it came from, everybody always thinks you get those things from the environment. You learn those things from the people you're around, but we weren't around people. We lived in the country, and in our group of people or friends, my network was my brother and sister. Those were my friends growing up because we were triplets. So we always had each other, and it wasn't like we lived in the city where you would be influenced by a certain group of people, and we didn't have the internet. And so it's like, and so I think people have a hard time comprehending, like, well, where did that come from if you didn't have the internet? And I always laugh about it is MTV.
It really was.
It was MTV. And
is that where this kind of the skateboarding stuff came from too?
No, I think skateboarding, it was the idea obviously of a counterculture, but it was also, there was the artistic side to skateboarding because you had not only the graphics, but you had the music, and it wasn't so plain or sterile. But I always laugh about, obviously MTV, rest in peace. We've lost something that I think it's been coming for a long time, but I think there was a cultural value to MTV that we, and people are going to think that's the weirdest thing they've ever heard. But honestly, you think about back in the day, we not only had music, but we were creating music videos.
Yeah.
So there was this side of creativity that went along with the music.
So, I've actually pushed when people complain a little too much about like TikTok and Instagram and stuff, like musicians, I usually just end up telling them like all it is just MTV, but it's just shorter music videos.
And a lot of people,
it's really funny when people get all weird about the whole lip singing thing on like TikTok, where it's clearly like a music video style thing. Right. Like every music video, they're lip syncing. Yeah. Like you're not actually.
Yeah, and that people don't, but a lot of people didn't grow up with MTV, so they can't comprehend that. No, they're lip syncing. They're acting. Yeah. And they're having to, but even when you act, they're still going to go back and redo the sound. Yeah. But yes, lip syncing isn't a bad thing unless you're purely fake with what you're doing, unless it's not yours. Yeah. But I do think.
Yeah, I find it funny, like in a music video, like I lip sync in a music video, obviously. And it's like somebody's like, well, he's lip syncing. And it's like, well, I sang it live. I'm just like, this is a performative
Well,
piece.
it's the same when you record music. It's not like everybody's playing their instruments at the same time you record. Typically everybody might individually record their instrument, and you might individually record your lyrics, right? And then you put it all together. Yeah. And that's like I think about like when people say, "Oh, we recorded a live album in the studio." Well, they just recorded everything in real time, right? And that's what you got. Yeah. But I do think that like MTV, sometimes we would go into San Antonio and stay with my dad's sister, and they had cable television. That was back in the day when
just
cable,
eat it up. Yeah.
And I would sit up at night watching MTV. mesmerized by MTV. Like
Wow.
it didn't matter what the music was. And back then there wasn't 50,000 different musicians or genres or whatever you want to call it. You know, you had you had these, you might play one song from, sort of pop, and then you might go into rap or hip hop and then into punk. And I can remember like the first time I saw a Social Distortion music video, I knew like right then and there, I was like, I love this. And then it was Rancid, and it was like, it appealed to me. Where it came from, I have no idea. But they didn't play country music, so the only exposure to country music was listening
The
to
radio.
records with
Oh,
dads,
okay.
or the
Yeah,
radio with
yeah.
dad, but couldn't wait to like go stay the weekend, with Aunt Jen and get to watch MTV, and it'd be like 10 o'clock at night and be like, yeah, I finally get to watch MTV, and you're just mesmerized by that. And I think that had a lot to do with just opening not that music influenced me, but the idea of what it all did influenced me and opened up my mind to a lot of different things. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it can't hurt. I didn't become one of those kids that just was lazy and didn't do anything but listen to music. Luckily we had structure. We had discipline, I guess is what it is.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you combine the art and the creative with some discipline, you get like, well, yeah, I mean, because even the idea of being an artist and being a creative, that's not sit around with your head in the clouds.
Yeah.
You got to make some stuff happen. And you got to do it.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of discipline.
I mean,
actually.
art to me, it goes into, you can't sit around and wait for art to happen. Music, visual, whatever kind of art you're into, you're not going to sit there. I mean, you sit there and you wait for the moment that you can do it, but you're not going to, if you don't seize the moment of inspiration, you're not going to create whatever it is you're creating. And it goes into the horse business as well. I always say that it takes an imagination to train a horse.
In what way?
Creating scenarios, and I said this in another podcast is, we have to create in the polo world, probably more than like some of the other disciplines, but we always have to think or imagine of a situation to put that horse into to get him out of that situation. Because if you can't get him out of that situation, you're going to be in a wreck. And so creating different scenarios in your head, putting that horse in that situation, and then figuring out the best way to train that horse correctly to get him out of that situation and to have him ready to go into that next situation.
That's interesting. How do you think, I actually haven't heard any horse trainers talk about that. And I'm curious if that's, that sounds like it's common in polo, but like I can't say I've ever heard like a barrel horse trainer.
No, but they might use their imagination to find a way to correct a horse or to
Yeah, but think about the amount of times that you run in there and like you just end up getting a weird angle.
Yeah.
Like it ducks going into the first barrel and then you steps off the
Yeah.
back and then you're off, and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
shit changes.
But I'll listen to like different trainers and they'll say like, imagine if you're doing this, but they don't think that it has anything to do with imagination. They might just say, imagine if you do this with this horse to get it to do this. Well, that is imagination. Now it might be just a real simple way of looking at imagination, but for me, it's into like creating different scenarios and then putting that horse. Even if I was showing a horse, I would imagine this is what we're doing, but then at the same time, if I'm out on the ranch and I'm on a young horse, just putting miles on him, my imagination goes somewhere else. It goes into writing a short story or thinking of the next pair of leggings I'm going to build and what I'm going to do. Yeah, and then by the end of that, I've been on that colt for 2 hours and he's good. He's good, tired, done a lot with him. He's getting more broke every step we take because my imagination has released all that pressure off of him and I'm doing something else with him.
Yeah, well, and allowing yourself to have time to just like think.
Yeah.
Like just be alone and think.
Yes. And it's also a way of multitasking, but accomplishing good things. So it's I'm probably wired differently than a lot of people when it comes to that.
You don't say.
No.
I think I might be too.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
definitely an odd duck.
Yeah, weirdos.
Weird.
Weirdos.
I like when people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to be weird, but like I really like your music or whatever." I'm like, you definitely are not the weird one in
Yeah,
this
no.
situation.
Everyone else is weirdo.
No,
Yeah,
well, like
yeah.
you liking my music is not weird. Me sitting in a dark room for 8 hours writing the song, like that was weird.
Yeah. Well, but that's what it takes. That's what
Yeah.
it takes. We're creating something.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to like just what happens because of it, whether it's like training horses or writing songs. Like they like the finished product, which that part's cool, but that's not even really the essence of the point of it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but the process of doing it actually is the
Yeah.
fun, the true.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
No, not at all.
Well, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah. It's good. I like talking with people that kind of have the same
Yeah,
same
for sure.
wavelengths, and it's fun being here in Vegas doing it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Are y'all going to the watch party?
We'll be there, and then we're gonna go see Ray Wiley Hubbard tonight.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be fun.
Where's Ray Wiley playing?
The Golden Nugget?
Oh, that'll be sick.
I know, because we're gonna go a little bit early just so we can take in
Yeah, man.
old Vegas,
Yeah,
and then talk about Weirdo.
Oh my gosh.
Ray Wiley is one of the best,
Yeah.
and his music is good. So
I've got at the podcast studio back home, the picture that's behind the guests. Ray Wiley made that picture.
Oh wow.
And he signed it. Yeah.
That's so cool. But yeah, we're gonna try to we're gonna do that. But the watch party's always fun here.
Yeah, man.
That's partly why we come.
Yeah, we'll be hanging out here pretty much every day.
Yeah. Are you playing again while you're here?
I play the Westgate here on Friday the 12th.
Okay. Oh, good.
You're gonna be out here the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sick.
I know. I'll be sick.
Oh, don't say that.
By the time I get home,
Let's not, dude.
Yeah,
let's not jinx it.
but it always happens. We
I
always
know.
get the crud by the time we go home.
Dude, and I was really nervous about playing at the end of it. I'm here the whole
no
time.
voice. You'll be
And then I played at the
hacking on
very end.
stage.
I hope not.
No, you gotta
I'll
stay
be
healthy.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Taking my vitamins, working out, getting in the sun, trying to.
the sun helps.
Yeah. Might sneak a couple little,
Go lay by the pool and
sneak a couple darts.
exactly. Those help. Those are good for the voice.
Those are for sure, especially out here in the dryness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But cool. Well, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. Mini Irons is doing well. That's the clothing company.
Mini Irons has been good. It's been really good. I think we got 2,000 caps out there all
Sick.
over the world.
Yeah.
And it's been that's been a good one. I was talking today about the community that it's built, and it's just getting better because it's everybody. It's not cowboys. It's not it's not just one walk of life or culture or lifestyle. It's all over, and that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it describes you perfectly.
Yeah.
You got a lot of irons in the fire.
A lot of irons in the fire.
Can people? So you do leather work?
Mhm.
Can they like? Do you do custom order stuff? And
Custom orders is a touchy subject
Okay.
because I talk about doing custom orders, but the minute somebody starts telling me what they want,
yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like, but if you say, you know what, build me whatever you want to build, man, they're gonna get it and it's gonna be good.
cool.
And I think a lot of custom makers are that way, but I do. I mean, I like to be able to build something for somebody that they'll use and enjoy, but there's a fine line on that custom leather work stuff, but it's been 18 years of 18 years of doing it, and I finally feel like I've got it down, and doing something good,
Yeah.
doing quality work anyway. So
For sure.
but, yeah.
No, I've seen some of it. It looks badass.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun,
I rock that Mini Irons hat sometimes too.
man. It's good.
Or no, oh shoot, I wore it in there was a video that I was shoeing or whatever and singing, and I wore it. I think it went
Yeah.
freaking pretty nuts,
Good.
like on
Yeah.
Facebook or something, didn't it? Or TikTok or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we sold like a hat.
Yeah, it's funny to see because I'll have people. The other day, somebody was coming back from Key West, and they were in the Denver airport, and they were walking through the airport, and they saw a guy wearing one. So
Whoa.
they stopped him, took a picture, sent it to me, like, man, we saw this in the wild, and it's so cool to see when people do that.
It's really cool to see the type of people.
Yeah.
Because I have the same experience with my music because I'm not like some household name.
Yeah.
Like most of the time, people that I meet that are into my music, are people that I would like. I'd probably be friends with.
Yeah.
You know, they like so closely.
Yeah.
Kind of just identify with my music that it's really cool to see. You end up having more of a connection with
When they're proud of it, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
because they think that they understand, or however you want to say it is, but they know that it represents what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they feel like it's for them, you know.
When it is.
And it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell people. I said, you know, it's for everybody. You know, you could be a bike builder, surfer, cowboy, leather worker, whatever it is, and that Many Irons cap represents what you're doing.
Hell yeah, dude.
You know, so that's
Well, I'm just trying to make I'm trying to make the music version of that. You know?
You're doing it.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well,
All right, cool. Well, we're gonna go party at the Westgate.
Yeah, definitely.
The Westgate every night. That's my one.
Yeah. I was like,
My one sign off. I like to point at Skeeter at random times. But cool, we're gonna get you to Ray Wiley too.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Sick,
Cool.
dude. Thanks for doing this.
Every time they're popping the gate. Oh Lord, no score. That one's just too damn rank kick rocks. Little buddy, better luck next season. Get a gold buckle and a couple good reasons.